Okay, welcome to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. We thank all of you for showing up. As you can see, the three posters, that we have up here today are the recent arrests that have been made by members of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. As you all are aware, we had a recent uptick in some shootings in Escambia County, specifically those two that were referred to as drive-by shootings. Due to good old-fashioned police work, meaning that we hit the streets through a combination of the patrol organization at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office in conjunction with investigations. Shook a lot of trees, interviewed a lot of people, got some videotapes from some folks in one particular neighborhood from a video camera that they had set up for home security. As a result of that and the leads that were worked again in patrol and investigations, we're proud to announce the following arrests today. John Lewis Coker III, Jared Beers, and James Frank. The specifics of the investigation, as much as we can talk about, will be dealt with by Chief Deputy Chip Simmons, who heads up our operational division at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, as well as we have a representative here today, John, Mr. Mulcan, thank you for being here, from the State Attorney's Office. As you can imagine, because we're still into the earlier stages of this investigation, we have made some arrests. There will be follow-on to this. We have reason to believe there are some other suspects from one of the videotapes that we have recovered that may be involved in this, and to date we've yet to develop those leads from that particular arrest, and so therefore we'll be limited in some information we can share with you today, but as always we will share as much as possible. And with that, I'll introduce Chief Deputy Chip Simmons. Chief.
Thank you, Sheriff. Yeah, as the Sheriff mentioned, typically in the summer months we have a little bit of an uptick in violent crime, but over the past 8 days we've had 6 shootings. Drive-by, some of those resulted in an individual being hit, some of those resulted in individuals not being hit, but there's still charges, obviously. So Sheriff Morgan and I and our operations team met just yesterday and to get an update on what's going on. And we decided then that we're going to put all of our available resources, which is patrol units, investigators, narcotics, all towards catching these people. We had some descriptions, and that's what we did. Yesterday we had a good day, but I will begin on June the 2nd. We had a drive-by shooting at 835 Massachusetts. An individual was hit in the leg. On June the 4th, 2 days later, we had a SWAT call out on the west side, and an arrest was made. This was near the Fairfield Drive area. If y'all remember, we had a SWAT call out. Individual was caught leaving the woods. And then on the 5th, we had a shooting in Cantonment. A Chester Purifoy was shot in the leg. 2 days later, he succumbed to his injuries. And then on the 9th, we had a shooting a drive-by shooting at 835 Massachusetts. And then later on the 9th, we had a shooting at Tabaid Lane. Those 2 shootings and the very first shooting at 835 Massachusetts that happened on the 2nd are believed to be connected. The others seem to be one-offs or not really connected with what we've got going on. And then yesterday, or on the 10th, we had a shooting at Camelia. Kyle Thomas was shot. We ended up arresting Jared Beers and James Frank. So as you can tell, we had just a very little break in these shootings for the last 8 days. I will tell you the question is going to be, are they all connected? We believe that the Massachusetts Avenue shootings are connected with the Tabaid Lane shooting, and that was one where we arrested Mr. Coker. I'm not sure if the pictures are up there yet. Mr. Coker is being charged with deadly missiles in both of those. There are also additional suspects, as the sheriff mentioned, that we believe are involved, and our investigation continues into those particular shootings. I was at a Stop the Violence rally just last week, and we heard from a number of mothers of individuals that were killed by drive-by shootings, and you could see and you could hear the pain that remains in their voice. We put the message out that if you see something, to say something. And we put the message out to stop the violence and to put the guns down and all that sort of thing. I will tell you that the message I have today is for those of you who are out there participating in this high-risk behavior, using guns, because your guns end up hurting someone, injuring someone, and too many times it's an innocent person. And it's usually the result of your stupidity. So don't be stupid on that. And then we would encourage mothers to talk to their children, fathers to talk to their children, pastors talk to your congregations. We'd ask coaches to talk to your players, friends talk to your friends, because we've all seen this on TV, how this ends. It'll end in jail, it'll end with someone in a hospital, or it'll end with someone in a cemetery. And so our message today is stop this stupidity. I would like to reiterate what Sheriff Morgan said. On the left-hand side, we have a number of uniformed deputies, and they were in our meeting, and then they went immediately out to their troops and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get these people today, and they were able to do it. So our hats go off to them. They did a very good job, and because of that, we have these 3 incarcerated, and the investigation is continuing as we speak. So,
Before I introduce Mr. Mulcan, want to connect the dots, which is critical here. Every one of these, by the way, is drug-related. All the shootings involve narcotics, either marijuana and or methamphetamines. So again, the violence is brought on by the drug culture within our community. One of the reasons why we wanted to have the press conference to let the community know we'd effected these arrests on the recent drive-bys is we understand the fear. I was getting calls from the community, and when you in the media do your job, which I'm not in any way calling you to task for this, when there's an incident that occurs in our community, it's your responsibility to report it, regardless of what it is. But it's also our responsibility to let our community know that we are not in the midst of Chicago from the 1920s. We're not having people randomly driving through neighborhoods and randomly shooting homes. If you are not involved in high-risk behavior, as Chief Simmons just said, the likelihood of you being involved in one of these incidents is slim and none. So again, it's drug-on-drug crime. It's the thugs in our community that are ripping each other off. One of the incidents that we're briefing today, involved attempted drug rip-off with some counterfeit money. And when the money was exchanged for the drugs, and the dealer noticed that the money was not kosher, then the gunfight is on. So this is high-risk behavior, as the chief said, involving narcotics. Our best and brightest citizens are not involved in the narcotics trade in Escambia County. With that, we'll introduce Mr. John Mulcan. Mr. Mulcan from the State Attorney.
Really can't, again, this is an ongoing investigation, especially the one with Mr. Coker, because I believe we still have several suspects that are really the shooters involved in this that are out, so I won't speak to those. As far as Mr. Franks and Mr. Beers, basically, we will have assigned that case to a special prosecutor to handle. The work that was done by the Escambia County Sheriff's Office was well done, and we, working with them, have put together a case that we believe we can combine with the drug possessions and the shooting aspects. We'll be able to get significant sentences. We'll be asking for significant sentences on both of those. One of the individuals did cooperate, and we'll use him as a witness in this case ultimately. I will echo the comments of the sheriff that, again, the crimes that we're seeing involve basically drugs and guns, and they involve young people. All these people are under the age of 30. I hate to say that, that's young now in my world. But again, they are, it used to be in my business over the years, you never saw anybody that would mess with a marijuana dealer. It is very common that we see reports of marijuana dealers being stuck up, robbed, and things like that. That was never a target in this business that's going on right now. But again, we thank the Sheriff's Office for doing the hard work that they did. We hope, again, and echo the comments that, again, this has got to stop. And people have to help out in this endeavor. It requires the citizenry to help stop this. It's not just us in this, it's the whole community that's going to have to stop this.
Before we open it up for questions, the last comment that I will add for everybody is understand something. Until such time that our community steps forward and helps us in this, we are always in a reactive mode. Always in a reactive mode. We respond after an incident occurs. And so again, if you have a family member or a friend, or if you live in a neighborhood where there is drug activity occurring, you know that there's drug dealing going on, and we know that we have some citizens that assist us in this because we get the calls and we begin narcotics investigations based upon that. Normally we hear from our community, well, they're afraid. Folks, you can call, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. You can ask for anonymity. We work with the State Attorney's Office to ensure anyone bringing forth information can maintain their anonymity. You can call Crime Stoppers. You can call 433-STOP. You have a whole host of things that you can do to ensure that no one in your community knows that you're the one that called law enforcement to report criminal activity in your neighborhood. And so we want to emphasize to folks, until you pick up the phone and notify us of these particular instances, we are always in a reactive mode. So if you have a family member or a friend or someone in your neighborhood that's involved in this activity, the reason why I bring that up and emphasize it is this. One of the houses that was shot up the house was misidentified. So it wasn't the correct house. When they were going to go back and do the shooting, the wrong house was shot. So I will tell you, if you have this high-risk behavior going on in your neighborhood, you are placing yourself and your family at risk. It's not a problem that will just go away. You need to report this to law enforcement. With that, we'll open it up to any questions that we can answer.
Sure. Mr. Coker, you mentioned was believed to be tied to two of the shootings in Massachusetts and Bay. What were the cases, the other two suspects? What shooting or shootings do you believe they were connected to?
Chief, let the operations answer that question.
Yeah, Coker was involved in the ones I said were connected. The ones on Massachusetts, the one on Tabaid, the Beers and Frank was involved in a Camelia shooting.
Would also emphasize in some of these shootings, like when Mr. Purifoy, he finally succumbed to his wounds, we have another victim that's in the hospital, that's clinging to life. So many times these will go from, again, a shooting, if you will, can end up being a homicide investigation, at which time, again, the state attorney will refile charges. So, this is serious stuff.
Just to clarify, you said the two shootings on Massachusetts, same address for those 835, so those are both outside Diego Circle, and that's the same one that Coker is connected to on the west side on Tabaid. Is that right? That's
correct. He's a suspect. He's not alone, but he is a suspect, been arrested for two for deadly missiles, but he's also a suspect in some other
Was he
cases.
The alleged shooter in all three cases, or was he being shot at? Because they're two different locations. That's what I'm trying to get clear in my head.
As we understand it right now, he is the driver in the two shootings that we charged him with on the deadly missiles. But again, what's important to understand is that we're still working these cases. We just stopped these people yesterday, and there's a lot to do. There's search warrants, there's interviews, and then one interview will lead to another interview and all that sort of thing. So what we're giving you is up-to-date information because we think the public wants to know and needs to know that when they hear about these shootings that we're working and we're investigating, we're taking these people that are ruining their neighborhoods and we're putting them in jail where they belong.
Yeah, Andrew, I'll give you the specific addresses for that. The 835 Massachusetts Avenue and 8346 Tabaid Place are the two that John Lewis Coker is tied to. And then Jared Beers and James Frank are tied to the 63 Camelia Drive shooting.
Can you comment at all on the nature of what were they trying to do in these drive-bys at those three locations? I mean, we know it's drug-related, and you talk about...
You okay with this?
Yeah, we talk about the fact of what transpired, and what's in the report that talks about on the Massachusetts one.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah. I'll let the state attorney answer that.
In the Massachusetts one, those sprang from a drug transaction in which money was supposedly exchanged and things like that. So the crux of that was then Mr. Coker allegedly getting people from our position to shoot people up for engage in ripping them off, that type of thing. So it's a retaliation kind of theory at this point. Did that clarify it?
Again, he was in the car.
He's in the car, the driver of the car in which people that are shooters that we believe he was utilizing.
So you don't believe in any of those he pulled the trigger?
At this point, it's too early to say, simply because as you can tell from the video, you can't discount it at this point, but based upon what we have at this point, he's not a trigger person.
And then this question is for the Sheriff Morgan. Just a little bit ago, you alluded that one of the homes shot up in one of these cases was the wrong house. What case was that?
Do we want to divulge that?
I wouldn't. We gave the addresses to.
Yeah, we gave you the addresses. The reason why is because we have a victim in this case that if we give that information, that would, I'm not comfortable with releasing that right now.
And is there, I know you said the two Massachusetts and Tabaid are connected, and Camelia is not connected to those. the Chester Purifoy shooting in Cantonment or the SWAT case on Fairfield, are any of those three connected, or they're all separate?
We don't believe so at this time, right, Chief?
Right, that's correct. They're separate. The one on Fairfield was, again, just an individual case, and the one on Cantonment, we can't tell if there's any connection. We don't see any connection with those. We've also looked at the potential connection for our cases as well as the ones that are in the city of Pensacola, and we don't have any direct connection in those. But we do have constant communication with city investigators, and we share information all the time. So while they're not necessarily connected, it's just a coincidence that we've had so many in the last couple of weeks. Well, I say coincidence, it's drugs. As Sheriff mentioned, it was drugs. And I would like to say, if I could, we talk about responding to these calls after guns were fired. Well, on the 6th, our narcotics unit served a search warrant in a 20 block of Majors Road. And what we got was a little bit of marijuana. We got some methamphetamines, we got some crack, we got some powder cocaine, we got all the stuff. And what do we get? 2 guns. We got 2 guns and $29,000. Now, what do I have those guns for? Had we not intervened in that particular case, those 2 guns would likely be used in something, again, the rip-offs that the sheriff was talking about. So we're not just investigating these after the fact. We also have a proactive high-intensity patrol unit. We have a proactive narcotics unit and a proactive investigations unit. So we're not just waiting for this to happen. We're going out and getting these people, getting the drugs off the street, getting the guns off the street before something bad happens.
Yeah, the point to that, what the chief just says, we work your tips. If you call, again, if we get information from the community, the narcotics folks, especially in this instance, are all over those things. Young man, you had a question in the back?
Yeah, I was just curious, so with these other shootings that you guys are still looking for people, do you have any suspects yet? Are you questioning people in those?
But what the chief just said, we work very closely with our other law enforcement agencies. In this case, on the Pensacola Police Department's had a few shootings also. That goes through our intelligence division, and they're running all of that data information that we get, and there's literally programs that we run that are, will do the connectivity for those particular cases, and at such time, we'll either act upon it if it's within our jurisdiction or if it's a joint thing with PPD, we pass that information on to them. So.
One more question.
We were talking about the main firearms that you're gathering there. Where are these guns coming from? Is there illegal supply coming in, or are these legally obtained guns, generally based off what you're seeing?
Well, sadly, you're getting into a gun control issue, if you will, if nothing else, just, by inference. It's not difficult to find illegal firearms and to say where do they come from. Now, we routinely work that information with the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives group, to run serial numbers. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement also has the capability to do that. And there's actually a national database that's used. If you all recall, we had a storefront operation several years ago. We took into custody during that storefront operation a weapon that was used in 1983 in a liquor store robbery in Los Angeles, California. So, weapons that are reported, the database is pretty darn good for that. So to say specifically where those are at until we run these particular weapons, we won't know. But I can tell you it's a rare thing to arrest a citizen who is a legal gun owner. They're not engaged in high-risk behavior such as dealing drugs. That's part and parcel to what they do. While we appreciate the Stop the Violence marches, et cetera, remember, we're talking to the decent members of our community. Who we need to be talking to and reporting are the folks who are engaged in this high-risk behavior. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.